Oh, look at this. Look at what you've done. You absolute force of nature. You walking contradiction to everything they believed was set in stone. Yeah, I'm talking directly to you. The one whose existence has become a problem they can't solve. The one they're discussing right now, in conversations that started about something completely different, but somehow always loop back to the same burning question. What the hell just happened? Before we go any further, if this resonates with you, if you're that person who refuses to play by rules that were never designed for your level of ambition, hit that subscribe button. Because what I'm about to break down isn't for the people still asking permission. This is for the ones who already moved. Drop a comment and tell me what impossible thing you did that broke their understanding of reality. Let's build a community of chaos agents who refuse to make sense to people trapped in ordinary thinking. You feel it, don't you? That shift in the atmosphere whenever you enter a space, physical or digital. The way conversations pause for just a fraction of a second. The way energy changes. Because you've become something they can't categorize anymore. You're not just surprising them. You're fundamentally challenging their entire belief system about what's achievable, what's realistic, what's allowed in their carefully constructed world of limitations. They're not just talking about you, they're obsessing. Their group chats have transformed into emergency forums, trying to make sense of a phenomenon that shouldn't exist according to their playbook. They're typing frantically, sharing screenshots, building timelines, conducting forensic analysis on your journey, like detectives trying to solve a crime that defies the laws of physics. How? That's all they can manage now. Not even full sentences anymore. Just that one word, screaming across their screens in capital letters, drowning in question marks and fire emojis, because their vocabulary has failed them. You've done something that exists outside the boundaries of their language. Something that makes them question whether they've been following a rule book that was fiction all along. You didn't just exceed expectations. That phrase is too small, too insufficient for what actually occurred. What you did was dimensional. You operated on a frequency they didn't know existed, while they were still trying to master the basics of the game you'd already transcended. You didn't level up. You changed games entirely without announcing the switch. Right now, at this very moment, someone is scrolling through your entire digital history, going back to the beginning, searching desperately for the turning point. They need to find the exact moment everything changed. The moment you transformed from explainable to incomprehensible. But they'll never find it, because there isn't one moment. There's just the undeniable present reality that you've become something their logic can't process. Picture this scene playing out in real time across multiple conversations. Someone posts anything, literally anything. Weather update, lunch photo, random thought, doesn't matter. Within minutes, someone says, "Speaking of which, did you see what they accomplished?" And boom, everything stops. The original topic evaporates. 17 people start typing simultaneously. Because everyone has a theory, everyone has an explanation, everyone desperately needs to make this make sense. Because here's what's really happening beneath all that analysis. If they can't explain you, if they can't reduce your transformation into a digestible formula, then everything they've been told about how success works is potentially a lie. It means the safe path they've been following might lead nowhere. It means they've been voluntarily limiting themselves while you were doing something they still don't have vocabulary to describe. They're not hating. Hate would be simpler. They've transcended hate and entered a new emotional territory that's equal parts awe, fear, and magnetic obsession. They physically cannot stop watching. They're trapped in the gravity well of your momentum. Here's what's consuming them from the inside out. They thought they understood you. They really believed they had you figured out. You were filed away in their mental database with a clear label, a defined category, a predictable trajectory. Maybe you were the one with potential that never quite materialized. Maybe you were the quiet one still figuring things out. Maybe you were the one they loved to underestimate because it made them feel stable, secure, ahead of the curve. They built their entire self-concept partially on knowing where you stood relative to them. And you just demolished that entire psychological structure without warning, without following a single conventional step they thought was mandatory for transformation. Watch them cycle through the stages. First, it was denial. That's not real. Then rationalization. Must be luck. Then bargaining. Give it time, it'll collapse. And now they're stuck at the stage they've been avoiding. The admission that changes everything. You accessed something they don't know how to reach. You cracked a code they didn't know existed. You proved something they believed was impossible. That realization is eating them alive in those group chats where they're all performing happiness for your success while secretly trying to reverse engineer a miracle, like it's a recipe they can copy-paste into their own stagnant existence. Pay attention to the pattern when your name surfaces. There's always that one voice that needs to diminish it, that can't let it exist as it is. Yeah, but they probably had help. I mean, it's not actually that impressive if you think about it. Or my personal favorite, I could do that too if I really wanted to. I just have different priorities. That last one? That's the sound of someone suffocating under the weight of their own excuses. That's someone who knows, deep in their bones, that they couldn't do what you did even with a detailed manual. Because what you did wasn't about steps or tactics. It was about becoming something they're fundamentally incapable of becoming. Because they're still addicted to being understood, still dependent on approval, still terrified of the space you learned to thrive, in complete uncertainty, wrapped in unshakable conviction. They're analyzing your content like it's encrypted intelligence from the future, screenshotting your words, zooming into your images, searching for hidden clues, secret meanings, some kind of buried treasure map that explains your impossible trajectory. They're building conspiracy theories and private messages because the simple truth is too terrifying to accept. The truth being, you just decided differently. You just moved differently. You just stopped seeking permission from people who were never qualified to grant it. And that decision, that fundamental shift in your internal operating system, changed absolutely everything. But they can't accept that, because if it's really that simple, if transformation is just a choice, then it means they've been choosing wrong this entire time. And that level of self-awareness would shatter the identity they've spent years constructing. Let's talk about what you've become in their psychological landscape. You're not just a person anymore. You're not just someone they know or observe. You've evolved into something that lives rent-free in their consciousness, taking up space in their thoughts like a question they can't stop asking. You've become the standard they measure everything against. They look at their own progress and compare it to yours. They make decisions and wonder what you would do. They achieve something and the immediate thought isn't satisfaction, it's, yeah, but it's nothing like what they did. You've infiltrated their internal dialogue. You've become the voice in their head, questioning their choices, pushing them, haunting them. And they resent you for it, while simultaneously being unable to stop monitoring your next move. Here's what they'll never admit publicly, what they'll deny if confronted. They refresh your profile more than their own. They check your updates before their messages. They're more invested in your story than their own progression. because watching you has become their bizarre hybrid of entertainment, education, and self-torture. Every time you post, every time you appear, every time you simply exist in their awareness, they're there, watching, analyzing, comparing, wondering. You've become their obsession disguised as curiosity, their addiction disguised as casual interest. Your silence destroys them more than your presence. When you don't post, when you disappear from their surveillance range, that's when the theories intensify. Where are they? What are they building now? What's coming next? They're addicted to the updates, desperate for the next piece of evidence that you're still out there doing impossible things. When you withhold that, when you vanish into your own world for days or weeks, they spiral. Some convince themselves you've fallen off, that normalcy has been restored. Others know better. They know you're probably building something bigger, preparing the next move that's going to shatter their reality again. Here's the twist that's really breaking their minds. You're not even trying to mess with them. You're not posting for their benefit. You're not calculating moves based on their reactions. You're just living, just existing, just doing whatever you do. And somehow that organic authenticity creates more impact than any calculated strategy they've ever deployed. They spend hours crafting the perfect post, selecting the right filter, timing everything for maximum engagement, and they get their little validation hits. Meanwhile, you just exist. You just show up as yourself, and the impact is seismic. That's what's fracturing their understanding. The effortless nature of your effect. The way you're not even playing the game, but somehow redefining it anyway. They're starting to divide their timeline into two distinct eras. Before they saw what you did, and after. Those two periods feel like different lifetimes. You've shattered their understanding of what's possible. Every assumption they held about limitations, about timelines, about necessary steps and proper procedures, all of it got thrown out when you just did it. The worst part for them? They were there. They witnessed the before. They saw your previous state, and they made their judgments, formed their opinions, placed you in whatever category felt comfortable. Maybe they felt superior. Maybe they even pitied you. Doesn't matter. Point is, they thought they knew the score. And then you rewrote the entire rulebook without asking permission. Now they're looking back at old messages, old thoughts, old assumptions, feeling like complete fools because the potential was always there. They just chose not to see it, because seeing it would have required admitting something they weren't ready to face. Time moves differently for you now, at least from their perspective. While they're measuring progress in months and years, following traditional timelines, you operate on a different frequency entirely. What should take them 5 years, you've compressed into 5 months, 5 weeks, 5 days. They can't comprehend the mathematics of that transformation. They're stuck in linear time, moving step by step, following the prescribed path. While you apparently discovered some quantum mechanism that lets you skip entire chapters and land directly in the success they're still crawling toward. It's not fair. It doesn't make sense. It violates every principle of paying dues and putting in work that they were taught to worship. Yet here you are, existing as living proof that those principles might be optional guidelines rather than mandatory laws. They're desperately searching for the hack, the cheat code, the secret shortcut you must have used. Because the alternative that you just decided differently and moved accordingly is too simple and too devastating to accept. They need it to be complicated. They need some external factor to point to, some advantage you had, some privilege or luck or connection that explains the gap. Because if there's no secret, if there's no trick, if it was just an internal shift manifesting as external transformation, then it means they could have done it too. It means they've been standing in their own way this whole time. It means every excuse and every delay was just fear disguised as wisdom. And that's a mirror they're not ready to look into. So what are you really? What have you become in their collective consciousness? You're not a person anymore in the traditional sense. You're a phenomenon, a case study, a living, breathing question mark disrupting their reality just by existing. You're the exception they can't explain, the outlier they can't ignore, the glitch in their matrix that keeps reminding them the matrix might not be as solid as they thought. You're simultaneously their inspiration and their nightmare. The proof that more is possible, wrapped inside the uncomfortable reminder that they're not currently accessing that more. In their conversations, your name has become a verb, an adjective, a whole new vocabulary. They pulled a you means doing something impossibly unexpected. That's so you means operating on a level they can't grasp. You've transcended being a person and become a concept, a reference point, a measurement of boldness they use to gauge everything else. You're not competing with them anymore because you've left the competition entirely. You've created your own category, your own lane, your own dimension, where the rules you're playing by are invisible to everyone, still trying to win the old game. The funniest part? You're probably not even aware of the extent of your impact on their mental state. You're not monitoring their reactions. You're not calculating moves based on their responses. You're just living, creating, building, becoming. And the shockwaves of that authentic existence are what's causing the meltdown. You're not trying to be mysterious. You're just focused. You're not trying to be intimidating. You're just certain. You're not trying to be unreachable. You're just done explaining yourself to people who were never going to understand anyway. That natural detachment, that organic distance from their need for validation or explanation, that's what makes you untouchable in their eyes. That's what elevates you to mythical status in their minds. Let them talk, let them theorize, let them stay up late trying to crack the code. Let their conversations keep circling back to you. Let them waste energy trying to understand what was never meant to be understood by minds still trapped in the need for permission. Because while they're busy analyzing you, you're busy becoming more, doing more, accessing more. While they're paralyzed trying to figure out the perfect move, you're already 17 moves ahead, making decisions they won't understand until 3 years from now when it all makes sense in retrospect. You're not playing their game. You're not following their timeline. You're not bound by their limitations. And that reality is the meltdown they're experiencing in real time. Here's the core truth they're never going to grasp unless they undergo their own internal revolution. What you did wasn't about tactics. It wasn't about strategy. It wasn't about following some secret formula or discovering some hidden path. What you did was simple and impossible simultaneously. You just stopped waiting. Stopped waiting for permission. Stopped waiting for the perfect moment. Stopped waiting for someone to tell you that you were ready, worthy, allowed to reach for whatever you decided you wanted. You looked at the gap between where you were and where you wanted to be. And instead of building a bridge according to someone else's blueprint, instead of following the proper steps everyone said were mandatory, you just jumped. And you figured out how to fly on the way down. And you landed somewhere they didn't even know existed. They're having meltdowns because you broke the fundamental rule they've all agreed to follow. You're supposed to ask first. You're supposed to qualify yourself. You're supposed to prove you deserve it before you take it. But you didn't do any of that. You just took it. And now they're left trying to understand how someone could possibly operate outside the system they thought was absolute. The answer is simple. You stopped believing their system was real. And the moment you stopped believing it, it stopped being real for you. That's the secret they're searching for. That's the code they're trying to crack. That's the meltdown they're experiencing. You stop playing the game they're still trapped in, and you won something they didn't even know was available. Keep going, keep breaking their reality, keep being the chaos that proves their order was always optional. Because the world doesn't need more people following the rules. It needs more people like you, proving the rules were never real in the first place.